From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
Israel's settlement moratorium has made a difference on the ground and improved the atmosphere for talks. Our position on this issue is well known. We believe that the moratorium should be extended. We also believe that talks should press on until completed.
President Obama makes the Israel-Palestine conflict the centerpiece of his UN address. We'll speak with attorney Diana Buttu, a former advisor to Palestinian negotiators. Then how often do you hear the words working class or labor movement? We'll speak with BBC economics editor Paul Mason on Live Working or Die Fighting, how the working class went global. And as Pakistan struggles to recover from the worst flooding in its history, we'll speak with Fatima Bhutto, the niece of the assassinated former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto, whose husband, the current president, is coming under fire for his handling of the crisis. Fatima Bhutto's new book is called Songs of Blood and Sword, a daughter's memoir. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Bob Woodward's new book is reporting CIA drone strikes in Pakistan have killed many Westerners, including some U.S. citizens, as part of the U.S. secret war inside Pakistan. Former CIA Director General Michael Hayden disclosed the killings of Americans to Pakistani President Asif Ali Zardari in November 2008, days after a deadly attack in the tribal area of North Waziristan. The names of the Americans killed in the drone strikes have never been released. During the meetings, Zardari reportedly gave the Bush administration the green light to carry out more drone strikes inside Pakistan. Zardari said, quote, "Kill the seniors. Collateral damage worries you Americans. It does not worry me." Woodward's new book, Obama's Wars, also reveals the CIA has created, controls, and pays for a clandestine 3,000-man paramilitary army of local Afghans that conduct highly sensitive covert operations into Pakistan. ProPublica is reporting more private contractors and soldiers have been killed in Iraq and Afghanistan in recent months. This marks the first time in history that corporate casualties have outweighed military losses on America's battlefields. More than 250 civilians working under U.S. contracts died in the war zones between January and June. In the same period, 235 soldiers died. George Washington University Law School professor Stephen Schooner said, quote, "It's extremely likely that a generation ago, each one of these contractors' deaths would have been a military death. As troop deaths have fallen, contractor deaths have risen. It's not a pretty picture," he said. At the United Nations, the Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad said Thursday most people believe the U.S. government was responsible for the attacks of September 11, 2001. The U.S. delegation responded to the comment by leaving in protest. Ahmadinejad also criticized the U.S. for the invasions of Iraq and Afghanistan.
It was said that some 3,000 people were killed on 11th September, for which we are all very saddened. Yet up until now in Afghanistan and Iraq, hundreds of thousands of people have been killed, millions wounded and displaced, and the conflict is still going and expanding.
Meanwhile, the Brazilian Foreign Minister, Celso Amorim, spoke at the UN and openly criticized the U.S. invasion of Iraq.
When President Lula first spoke in this hall in 2003, the world lived under the shadow of the invasion of Iraq. We hope that we learned the lessons from that episode. The blind faith in intelligence reports tailored to justify political goals must be rejected. We must ban, once and for all, the use of force inconsistent with international law.
Senate Democrats have put off a vote on whether to extend President Bush's tax cuts for the wealthy until after the midterm election. President Obama and his Democratic allies have proposed extending the cuts for 2 years, but not for households earning over $250,000 a year. Republicans want to extend the tax cuts for everyone, regardless of income. The state of Virginia executed 41-year-old Teresa Lewis last night, despite claims she was borderline mentally retarded with an IQ of 72. Lewis is the first woman to be executed in Virginia in nearly a century, and the first woman to be executed anywhere in the United States since 2005. She was convicted of plotting with her young lover to kill her husband and stepson for insurance money. Supporters of Lewis had urged for her life to be spared because she was borderline mentally retarded with the intellectual ability of about a 13-year-old. Teresa Lewis's attorney, Jim Rokop, spoke after the execution.
Tonight, the machinery of death in Virginia extinguished the beautiful, childlike, and loving human spirit of Teresa Lewis. For her family and friends, for her fellow inmates at Fluvanna, for her thousands of supporters in Virginia, the United States, and around the world, her death is a tragic loss.
The New York Times reports a record number of Muslim workers are complaining of employment discrimination. Federal data reports the number of complaints filed jumped 60% between 2005 and 2009, and the number of complaints filed in 2010 are expected to be even higher. Although Muslims make up less than 2% of the U.S. population, they now account for about a quarter of the religious discrimination claims filed. Mary Jo O'Neill of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission said, quote, "There's a level of hatred and animosity that's shocking. I've been doing this for 31 years, and I've never seen such antipathy toward Muslim workers," she said. Last month, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission sued the meatpacking company JBS Swift on behalf of 160 Somali immigrants, saying supervisors and workers had cursed them for being Muslim, thrown blood, meat, and bones at them, and interrupted their prayer breaks. A U.S. judge has sentenced Pakistani neuroscientist Afia Siddiqui to 86 years in prison for shooting at her American interrogators while in detention in Afghanistan. Her conviction and sentencing has been widely criticized in Pakistan, where Siddiqui is believed to have been innocent and mistreated in U.S. detention. U.S. authorities said Siddiqui was arrested in July 2008 by Afghan police, but many human rights groups have alleged she was forcibly disappeared by Pakistani authorities in 2003 and interrogated and tortured at the behest of the United States. In her testimony, Siddiqui claimed to have been held in a U.S. secret prison. In Pakistan, Afia Siddiqui's sister Fauzia criticized the 86-year sentence.
We had no better expectations from this judge. I mean, anything less than 100 would be clemency on his part, I would say. He has proven today to the whole world that the American justice system that America used to pride on, no longer exists.
The United States has granted asylum for the first time to a Mexican journalist who is the target of death threats. Jorge Luis Aguirre is the editor of the Mexico news site LaPolaca.com. Aguirre received his first death threat 2 years ago when he answered his cell phone while driving to the funeral of a colleague who'd been killed in drug violence. The caller told him, quote, "You're next." Several other Mexican journalists are currently seeking asylum in the U.S., including one who spent 7 months in an immigration detention facility. In other news from Latin America, the Colombian army has reported killing Mano Jojoy, the top military commander of the FARC, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia. He is said to have died in a bombing raid of a major rebel encampment in eastern Colombia. In technology news, the Federal Communications Commission has unanimously voted to finalize rules that open the vacant TV channels, so-called TV white spaces, for unlicensed use, including wireless broadband services. The move could result in what's been described as Wi-Fi on steroids. New York Mayor Mike Bloomberg is no longer the wealthiest New Yorker, according to Forbes magazine. Tea Party backer David Koch is now #1 after his income soared from $16 billion to $21.5 billion in 2009. The New Yorker magazine recently revealed that David Koch and his brother Charles have quietly helped bankroll the Tea Party movement and dozens of other right-wing causes. The New Yorker's Jane Mayer reported the Kochs are longtime libertarians who believe in drastically lower personal and corporate taxes, minimal social services for the needy, and much less oversight of industry, especially environmental regulation. Longtime anti-poverty activist Ambrose Lane has died at the age of 75. For the past 3 decades, he's been a host on Pacifica station WPFW in Washington. And thousands of opponents of mountaintop coal removal are gathering in Washington, D.C. this weekend for Appalachia Rising. Organizers are calling for the Obama administration to abolish mountaintop removal mining and immediately veto the proposed spruce mine project. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
And welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world.